we seen in the second part, in the second period, we saw the action of the story, how the astrologer meets the stranger, what was the stranger's problem, how the stranger behaves with the astrologer and the astrologer with him. We've seen that. We've seen also what the astrologer has seen about the stranger under the dim light while the stranger was lighting his cheroot. He saw his face, and that brought about a change in the astrologer. He no longer had his usual confidence. He started feeling very nervous. His throat ran dry. His hand was trembling. And we know why, maybe. Now we'll soon see why that happened. And why also he had to run away from his village. And also how he manages to convince the stranger to give up his desire for revenge. Not to go on still seeking revenge by telling him that the person was dead, and he got a death which satisfied the stranger, his desire for revenge. How did the stranger, in a way, recompense or pay back or reward the astrologer for telling him all that? By throwing him a handful of coins, not just 8 annas or whatever, but a handful of coins. The place was deserted by the time the astrologer picked up his articles and put them in his bag. The green shaft was also gone, leaving the place in darkness and the silence, and the stranger had gone off into the night after giving the astrologer a handful of coins. Let's continue from here on. It was nearly midnight when the astrologer reached home. His wife was waiting for him at the door and demanded an explanation. He flung the coins at her and said, "Count them." One man gave all that. 12.5 annas, she said, counting. She was overjoyed. "I can buy some jewelry and coconut tomorrow. The child has been asking for sweets for so many days now. I will prepare some nice stuff for her." "The swine has cheated me. He promised me a rupee," said the astrologer. She looked up at him. "You look worried. What is wrong?" "Nothing." After dinner, sitting on the pile, he told her, "Do you know, a great load is gone from me today. I thought I had the blood of a man on my hands all these years. That was the reason why I ran away from home, settled here, and married you. He is alive." She gasped, "You tried to kill him?" "Yes, in our village, when I was a silly youngster. We drank, gambled, and quarreled badly one day. Why think of it now? Time to sleep," he said, yawning, and stretched himself on the pile. Let's get back to this last part, which in a way answers all our queries, gives us the reason for what happened in the story. So it was nearly midnight by the time the astrologer reached home. His wife was waiting for him anxiously at the door, because he never came home so late otherwise. So she was worried also, perhaps. And she demanded an explanation. Said very angrily and out of anxiety, what happened? So he flung the coins at her and said, "Count them. One man gave all that." So usually he gave about a very, very few annas, or even just less than an anna. But he got all that, and he was happy with his, happy in the sense till he heard that the man didn't give him what he had agreed to give him. So that's why he was angry at the man, that he didn't give him what he promised. So when she said 12.5 annas. Like, why was her wife happy with that? Maybe on no day had he ever made so much of money. And what was the wife's plan to do with that? What was her plan to do with that money? She was going to make something for her child. who was every day asking for some sweet meat, something sweet, and now she could give the child something sweet because she could buy jewelry and coconut. But the man wasn't worried about the money which he got. He was angry that he didn't give him what he had agreed to give him. The swine has cheated me. Swine means pig, but here it's used more as a sort of abusive word about someone when one is angry. He promised me a rupee, said the astrologer. She looked up at him. You look worried. What is wrong? Nothing. After dinner, sitting on the parlor, he told her, do you know a great load has gone from me today? A big burden, a big weight on my head, on my mind. So the load was on his mind all the time, knowing that he had killed someone. Two anxieties. One, of course, that he killed, and the second, that any day he might be caught. Of course, he did not know that the man had not died and that the man had survived. But he thought any day he might be caught by the police, they might track him or whatever. And so he was worried about that. So that big load is gone. And also the second load that had gone was, finally he is not responsible for that man's blood. He didn't take that man's blood. So these are the two loads, in a way that you can say, he had on his mind. Especially the load of having murdered someone. She said, I thought I had the blood of a man on my hands all these years. So that was one big load, that he had killed someone. That was the reason why I ran away from home, settled here, and married you. So that's why he ran away, not to get caught, and also in a way to try to forget about that. She gasped, you tried to kill him? Yes, in our village when I was a silly youngster, we drank, gambled, and quarreled badly. And one day, why think of it now? So I said, okay, let's not bring that back to mind. And he goes to sleep. That's how R.K. Narayan has concluded the story very cleverly at a very apt point. So I think here there's nothing but jaggery or joggery, both ways are correct in pronouncing. It's a sweet made from either the sugar cane or from coconut. From both these joggeries made. It's a sweet thing which is used mainly to sweeten delicacies, different types of sweetmeats. If you have any more difficulties, you can always contact me via the school. Let's now go through some of these exercises. Read the lesson carefully. Now do we know why the astrologer got anxious when he saw the man's face? He had a fear that maybe if the man recognizes him, he might kill him there and then. So we see how very cleverly the story writer has written the story and we developed the plot of this story. We answered also what was his profession, why he had to leave without telling anyone where he was going. Because otherwise they would know where he was and he would have been caught, either by the man or the police. Go through these exercises at the end of the lesson. The first you should be able to do on your own. If you've paid attention to the lesson as I read it, I think, and read the lesson again by yourselves, because I've read it, but you should also read it. So read the lesson again by yourselves and then try to do these exercises. They are all based on the lesson, with sometimes a little thinking you have to do, but most everything is based on the lesson. If you've read the lesson carefully and understood it correctly, you won't have difficulty doing those. I'll go to page 10 because that is where you more easily have problems, vocabulary problems. On page 10, A3, the second part. The first part again, A3, small numeral 1. If you understood the characters of the three persons in the story, the astrologer, the astrologer's wife, and Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak was a man who was taken for dead, who was assaulted by the astrologer. So these three people, each of them have their own traits or characteristics. From the adjectives which are given there in that red box, you have to choose which fit the different characters. That you can do by yourself after reading the story carefully and trying to understand the character of each one. But let's go to the second numeral, small numeral. Match the suffixes with the words and make nouns. One is done for you. Auction, the suffix is able, but here they've given auctioneer. Auctioneer is a noun. Okay, and then other EER comes later in the list. So auction will go with the fourth option of the suffix. So auction goes with EER and you can auctioneer. Then enchant. One of this, you have to choose the suffix to get the correct word. Enchant, the noun is enchantment. So you will add any NT to enchant. No, a noun from that will be, you will get it by adding LEDG, lich, knowledge. So that will be the third one. Then prepare, you have TION at the last bit of the list of suffixes, but you have to add an A to it. It's not preposition, but preparation. So you have to add an A before the TION. Proceed. Now there are not many to choose from left. Proceed, you take the second suffix URE and you get procedure. But again, in the correct spelling, you will have to drop one E from the verb proceed. So it will be PROCEDURE, not two E's but one E. Appear, appearance, you take the option of A and C. Remarkable, there's only one option left, remarkable. But remarkable, unfortunately, is not a noun, it's an adjective. Remarkable is an adjective, not a noun. So that's the suffixes made into nouns. So there's one exception there, which they made, I suppose, inadvertently. Now here you have to read the story carefully to find out the answers for these questions, and you'll get them by reading the story. So I'm not going to give them to you immediately. Okay, you have to read the story and then fill in those answers there. But I will do one, because this is a thing which is not often easily done. That is number 5. There are some phrases here where the word crown is used with different shades of meaning. You know what a crown is. A king wears a crown. Crown also means the head. The top of a person's body is also called his crown. Okay, so here there are different words of the word crown used with different other words to get different phrases. So let's try and do this together. The words which are given in the red box: crowning achievement, to crown the effect, then crown of thorns, crowning glory, to crown it all. The first one is done. The works of Shakespeare are the crowning. You can say the crown. Where is it now? It's the crown, the crowning glory. The works of Shakespeare are the crowning glory of English drama. The crowning glory, yes, the glory of English drama, the highest peak is Shakespeare. So the crowning glory of English drama. Amitabh has given us awesome movies throughout the 5 decades, but his crowning achievement is his performance in the movie Black. In her pursuit for success, Radha has distanced herself from her family. Her fame has become a real crown of thorns. The fact that she's distanced herself from her family means they are called pain, therefore crown of thorns. A crown of thorns is a symbol of something which causes pain to others. So here, a crown of thorns. They threw a wonderful, number 4, D, they threw a wonderful party for me with costumes, games, and to crown it all, my favorite kind of ice cream. Okay? To crown it all, or you can also use here, to crown, the effect won't go so much. To crown it all, my favorite kind of ice cream. Next, medical science has great inventions, but organ transplantation is definitely a crowning achievement for human beings. So these are the answers to those, because you may not easily be able to do them on your own. But some of you surely will. And there may be alternatives which you choose which also make sense. So it's not just one right answer. Sometimes more than one may be possible. Let's go on to word usage. The power of his eyes, use the words given in brackets and rewrite the sentences. The power of his eyes was considerably enhanced. Now here, you have to use the word enhancement. And here you have to say maybe the inside, the enhancement, the power of his eyes. The enhancement of the power of his eyes was considerable. The enhancement of the power of his eyes was considerable. Okay, so it means the same. Then he had a working analysis of mankind's struggles. You can say here, his analysis of mankind's struggles worked. Working analysis. So his analysis of mankind's struggles worked. He knew what was going to happen to himself next minute. The next happening to himself was known to him. The next happening, or the happening of the next minute to him, was known to him. Now, if you find my answer satisfactory, will you give me 5 rupees? If my answers are to your satisfaction, will you give me 5 rupees? He shook his head regretfully. He shook his head with regret. Next sentence. It was a bewildering crisscross of light rays. The crisscross of light rays bewildered all. Or just bewildered also would do. I should have been dead if some passerby had not chanced to peep into the well, exclaimed the other, overwhelmed by enthusiasm. I should have been dead if some passerby had not chanced to peep into the well, exclaimed the other enthusiastically. You tried to kill him. You tried killing him. I will prepare some nice stuff for her. I shall make a nice preparation for her. The other groaned on hearing it. The other groaned when he heard it. So each of these sentences, as you can see, can be said in 2 ways. There's not only one way, but 2 ways. Now here what you can do is prepare a speech on science and superstitions. You can think of what science does and what superstitions do, and how they agree with each other, how sometimes superstitions happen to be based on science. Sometimes they contradict the findings of science. Most superstitions have no rational meaning, but sometimes some of them may have some scientific meaning behind them. So think about it and try and write an essay on that, or a speech on that even. Let's also do page 9, the bottom of the page. Read the following sentence, that's number 4. Read the following sentences and find out true and false sentences. Correct the false sentences. The astrologer gave a correct prediction to the client about his past, that he was stabbed, thrown into a well, and left for dead. Is this true or false? It is true. Where do you find it? Where do you find this to make sure that it was true? Look at page 6. Page 5 itself also. Page 5, write down, and he says, a knife has passed through you once. Then on page 6, then you were pushed into a well nearby in the field. You were left for dead. So these two sentences tell us that the first sentence here is correct. Take the second one. When the astrologer came to know that the man whom he killed is alive, he felt that he was relieved of his guilt. Is this true or false? It's true. Where do we find this answer? On page 7, where he said, "Do you know, a great load is gone from me today. I thought I had the blood of a man on my hands all these years. That was the reason I ran away from home." So here we know now that the astrologer came to know that the man was alive and he was relieved. The astrologer tried to back out of the deal and talked about the client's past. Is this true or false? In a way, it's partly true. He tried to back out the deal, but he didn't succeed, of course. And he talked a little about the past. So it's partly true. Then the astrologer rescued himself from Guru Nayak's revenge. Is it true or false? Did Guru Nayak manage to take revenge on the astrologer? No. So obviously, he rescued himself from the event. How did he rescue himself? After he recognized Guru Nayak, then he told him that he could not take revenge anymore. And also then that he can only meet the person in the next world, which means he can meet him only after he's dead. Then he also told him that the man was dead. And also that the death, in a way, satisfied Guru Nayak's need or desire for revenge. So in this way, in a way, the astrologer protected himself from Guru Nayak's revenge. Now the moral of the story is that we must be responsible about what we have done and should not run away from our mistakes. Does the story tell us that? That we should remain there and face our mistakes? No. So the moral of the story doesn't tell us that we should run away from our mistakes, no doubt, but that we should not commit such mistakes. Okay? We should think before we act and be responsible and not put ourselves in such a way where we are in such a position where we are forced to run away. Here there can be many opinions about it, about the moral of the story. Okay, so this is definitely one. Narayan wouldn't, in a way, want people to kill and then run away. Rather, he would want people not to kill. So he would show people that it's better not to kill than have so many things to do. For your homework, do all the other exercises that are there, both before the story and also at the end, the exercise which I have not done. You have to do them on your own. And if you have difficulties, you can contact me.